What's up guys, it's Cal, and in this video we'll be taking a look at Fire Mages in the Battle for Azeroth Beta. We're going to be looking at their baseline abilities and passives as well as their talents and PvP talents. Now as far as changes go, there really aren't that many compared to some other classes, but just like my other overview videos, this video is not meant to tell you which talents to pick for the best DPS, or if Fire is better than the other specs of DPS. This is merely to show you what's to come. So, let's get started. So here are all the baseline abilities for the Fire Mage, and as I just mentioned, there's not a whole lot changed. So Counterspell is not changed, this is your interrupt, of course 24-second cooldown, it's still the same. Blink is not changed, 15-second cooldown, teleports you forward 20 yards or until you reach an obstacle, and it frees you from all stuns and bonds. Now remember, you won't have your artifact weapon anymore, so Blink will not heal you. And then there's Remove Curse. So Remove Curse is returning. This was actually removed in Legion, and it's coming back. It's the same as it was before. 8-second cooldown removes all curses from a friendly target. And then there's Spell Steal. It's not changed actually. Steals a beneficial magic effect from the target. This effect lasts a maximum of 2 minutes. And then we have Flame Strike. So Flame Strike just has a minor change to it. So you still call down a pillar of fire, burning all enemies within the area for some fire damage and reducing their movement speed by 20% for 8 seconds. On live, that's 50%. And this seems to be a running theme throughout some of the classes, or specs at least, that I've done overviews on, is some of these abilities that have a movement impairing effect baked into it usually are at about 50%, and then in BFA they've reduced it to 20%. So don't worry, it's not just the Fire Mages that are getting that treatment, other specs are as well. And there's Frost Nova, not changed, 30-second cooldown, blasts enemies within 12 yards of you for some frost damage, and freezes them in place for 8 seconds. And damage can of course cancel the effect. And there's Combustion, it's cooldown, 2-minute cooldown, engulfs you in flames for 10 seconds, increasing your spell's critical strike chance by 100% and granting you mastery equal to 50% of your critical strike stat, castable while casting other spells. So it's not changed. Actually, not changed at all. Polymorph, we know what Polymorph is. It's not changed. You can turn someone into a sheep, into a cat, I don't know, all the polymorph glyphs, into a compy. BFA, there was a glyph to do that, but yeah, polymorph is the same. You can do it to beasts, humanoids, and critters. Slowfall is the same. You can slow a group member's falling speed for 30 seconds, and then all these damaging abilities are actually not changed at all. So there's Fire Blast, has a recharge based off of your haste. It's instant, has 2 charges, blasts the enemy for fire damage, castable while casting other spells, always crits. And then Fireball, it's, your main filler move, does fire damage. And then there's Dragon's Breath, 20-second cooldown, use it. It does an AoE cut in front of you and disorients enemies for 4 seconds, not changed. Scorch is also not changed, deals fire damage, and it's castable while moving. And then Pyroblast is, you guessed it, also not changed, has a longer cast time than some of your other abilities, and it does more damage than some of your other abilities. Ice Block is not changed, main defensive cooldown, 4-minute cooldown, can't be attacked for 10 seconds, but you also cannot attack, you can't move, can't cast spells, and then it also gives you hypothermia, which prevents you from recasting Ice Block for 30 seconds. And then Invisibility, also not changed, 5-minute cooldown, turns you invisible for over 3 seconds, reducing threats each second. While invisible, you are untargetable by enemies, lasts 20 seconds, taking any action cancels the effect. Blazing Barrier, also not changed, 25-second cooldown, shields you in flames, absorbing some damage for 1 minute. Melee attacks against you cause fire damage to the melee attacker. And then there's Arcane Intellect, so this is actually returning. This was removed way back in Cataclysm, and now it's returning. So a lot of classes in BFA are getting their class buffs back, which is awesome. And as you see, mages are one of them. So this infuses the target with Brilliance, increasing their intellect by 10% for 1 hour. If the target is in your party or raid, all party or raid members will be affected. So that's awesome that they're bringing this move back. And then Conjure Refreshment, you can make food. It's obviously not changed. And then your teleports and portals are of course not changed. Now if you actually teleport to Undercity, it actually teleports you in front of Undercity because, as we know, well, Undercity is burnt down in BFA. And if an Alliance player teleports to Darnassus, it will teleport them to Darkshore in front of Darnassus burning. Like, it literally puts the portrait of Darnassus burning in front of you just to rub it in, I guess. And then Time Warp is not changed. This is your Heroism or Bloodlust, 5-minute cooldown. It's a raid cooldown, increases everyone in your raid's haste by 30% for 40 seconds. So yeah, not changed. Now let's take a look at the passive abilities, which I don't think are changed at all. So we have Cauterize, Fatal damage instead brings you to 35% health and then burns you for 28% for your health over 6 seconds, and then while you're cauterized, your movement speeds increase by 150%. Can't occur more than once every 5 minutes. Critical mass is not changed. Your spells have a 15% chance to deal a critical strike. You gain 10% more of the critical strike stats from all sources. Enhanced pyrotechnic is not changed. Each time your fireball fails to critically strike a target, it gains a stacking 10% increased critical strike chance effect, ends when fireball critically strikes. Hot streak is not changed. Getting 2 direct damage critical strikes in a row will make your next pyroblast or flame strike spell instant cast and cause double the normal ignite damage. And then your mastery is not changed. Your target burns for an additional some amount over 9 seconds of the total damage caused by your fireball, fireblast, scorch, pyroblast, and flame strike. If this effect is reapplied, any remaining damage will be added to the new ignite. Every 2 seconds, your ignite may spread to another nearby enemy. So those are all of the passives and baseline abilities. Now let's take a look at the talents, and then I'll also talk about PvP talents in case you care about those. Now there are some changes to the talents, but not a whole lot, I guess, compared to some other specs. So Firestarter is not changed. Your Fireball and Pyroblast spells always deal a critical strike when the target is above 90% health. Pyromaniac is not changed. Casting Pyroblast or Flame Strike while Hot Streak is active has an 8% chance to instantly reactivate Hot Streak. And then Searing Touch is actually new. So Scorch deals 150% increased damage and is guaranteed critical strike when the target is below 30% health. So this acts as a execute. So there's that. And then the level 30 tier. So Blazing Soul is completely changed, so it actually affects Blink now. Casting Blink ignites a blazing barrier around you. And then Shimmer. Shimmer did get a nerf to it, so it still replaces Blink. It's, you know, it's essentially Blink with 2 charges. That's what it does. It still teleports you 20 yards in front of you. All that stuff what Blink does. But its recharge is being increased from 15 seconds to 20 seconds. Now the reason why that's kind of a big nerf is because Blink's cooldown is 15 seconds. So Shimmer is kind of a double-edged sword where if you pick it, Blink has 2 charges to it, but Blink's cooldown is increased by 5 seconds. So you can pick that if you want. And then Blast Wave had a new effect to it, a buff I guess. So it's still 25-second cooldown, causes an explosion around yourself, dealing fire damage to all enemies within 8 yards. It knocks them back, that part is new, and reduces their movement speed by 70% for 4 seconds. That part is not new. Then the level 45 tier. So this tier is not changed at all. And Cancer's Flow, not changed. Magical energies flow through you while in combat, building up to 20% increased damage, and then diminishing down to 4% damage, cycling every 10 seconds. So, not changed. Mirror Image is not changed. 2-minute cooldown, creates 3 copies of you around you for 40 seconds. And then they cast spells and attack your enemies, and then Rune of Power is not changed. 40-second recharge. Put down a Rune of Power, has 2 charges, and it increases your spell damage by 40% when you stand within 8 yards of it. And then the level 60 tier. Flame On, not changed, reduces the cooldown of Fire Blast by 2 seconds, and then increases the maximum number of charges by 1 second. Then there's Alexstrasza's Fury, not changed at all. Dragon Breaths always critically strikes and contributes to Hot Streak. And then there's Phoenix Flames. Now this ability should look familiar to all you fire mages because this was the main artifact ability the artifact granted you. So as we all know, artifact weapons will not be a thing in BFA, so Phoenix Flames is now a talent. And the only change to it is its recharge is actually going down from 45 seconds to 30 seconds. So it still hurls a Phoenix that deals fire damage to the target and splashes to other nearby enemies. It always deals critical strikes, and it has 3 charges. Level 75 tier is actually not changed at all. Frenetic Speed, casting Scorch increases your movement speed by 30% for 3 seconds, not changed. Ice Ward is not changed. Passive Frost Nova has 2 charges, and then Ring Frost is not changed. 45-second cooldown, you put down a Ring Frost for 10 seconds. If an enemy runs through it and then out of it, they're frozen for 10 seconds. And then it limits 10 targets. Then the level 90 tier. So Flame Patch is not changed. Flame Strike leaves behind a patch of flames which burns enemies within it for some fire damage over 8 seconds. And then Conflagration. So Conflagration is moved all the way down to this tier from the first tier. And it's actually not changed at all. That's the only change to it. So Fireball still applies Conflagration to a target, dealing some more damage over 8 seconds. Enemies affected by either Conflagration or Ignite have a 10% chance to flare up and deal more fire damage to nearby enemies. And then there's Living Bomb, which is not changed. 10-second cooldown, you put down a Living Bomb on target, it explodes over some amount deals fire damage to that target and all enemies within 10 yards. Other enemies hit by this explosion also become a living bomb, but the effect does not spread further than that. And in the level 100 tier, so it has, I guess, 2 changes to it. Kindling, only change to Kindling, it now affects Phoenix Flames. So your Fireball, Pyroblast, Fire Blast, and Phoenix Flames critical strikes reduce the remaining cooldown on combustion by 1 second. Pyroclasm is actually new, so consuming Hot Streak has a 15% chance to make your next non-instant Pyroblast cast within 15 seconds deal 250% increased damage, and it has a maximum of 2 charges. And then Meteor is not changed at all. 45-second cooldown, call down a Meteor to one location after 3 seconds, it deals damage to that location, and then deals AoE damage around it. So those are all of the normal talents, and I'll take a look at the PvP talents. If you're unaware of how PvP talents will work, this is how they work in BFA. You have these 4 bubbles here. This first bubble is the same for all classes and all specs. It has Gladiator's Medallion, Relentless, and Adaptation. They're all on the first tier on live, and they all do the exact same thing. You still get to pick between one of these 3. These next 3 bubbles are a giant pool of your already existing PvP talents, so it's no longer on a tier system. You get to pick between 3 of any of these, so if there are 3 that you really like on live that are on the same tier, you can pick them in BFA. They did just prune a few of them off, so you can pick them obviously as long as they're not pruned off. Now as far as changes to these go, there's really no changes to them at all. There's actually just one new PvP talent, which I'll go over. So how I'm going to go over this is I'm just going to mouse over them. I'm going to read the name and then I'm going to continue on. If you want to know what it does, you can pause the video or you can look at your Fire Mage. But for the one that was changed, or I guess for the one that was added, I will of course go over what it is. So we have Netherwind Armor, Temporal Shield, Tinder, World in Flames, Controlled Burn. So Controlled Burn actually used to be a normal talent, now it's a PvP talent, but it's completely changed. It has nothing to do with what its normal talent iteration was. Well, doesn't really have anything to do with it. So Ignite deals its full damage 100% faster, but no longer spreads to nearby enemies unless combustion is active. And then there's Firestarter, Flame Cannon, Greater Pyroblast, Prismatic Cloak, Dampened Magic, and then Kleptomania. And those are all the PvP talents, as well as all of the normal talents. And there you have it, all the changes to Fire Mages coming in the Battle for Azeroth pre-patch, which is coming on July 17th. So I'm curious as to what you guys think. Do you like these changes, or do you hate them? You can let me know in the comments below, but if you guys enjoyed this video, then you can leave a like on it. You can sub to the channel for more videos like this, and I'll see you guys in the next video.